Audio check. Audio check one. Audio check.
Mic check. Testing microphone.
Very nice, folks. You guys came down to a shush, right? Thank you. Well, thank you for joining us this evening. Before I call the meeting to order, I'd like to remind our audience that if you would like to address the board this evening, we do have these yellow forms out there in the yellow table. Please fill it out and go ahead and turn it in to Mary Lou Delgado, our administrative assistant to the superintendent. Okay, so now I do call this regular school board meeting for Gadsden Independent School District to order. Today is Thursday, August 10th at 5:01 p.m. Ms. Delgado, can you please take roll call?
Mr. Cano?
Present.
Mr. Castillo? Ms. Flores?
Present.
Ms. Murillo?
Present.
Ms. Rodriguez?
Present.
Madam President, we have established quorum.
Okay, before I continue, I'd like to remind the public to please silence your phones. Thank you. Okay, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I salute the flag of the state of New Mexico, as the symbol of perfect friendship among united cultures. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and take the privilege of reading our mission statement tonight. The Gadsden Independent School District will provide diverse educational opportunities that empower students to be successful in an ever-changing world. El Distrito Escolar Independiente de Gadsden brindará diversas oportunidades educativas que capacitarán a los estudiantes para tener éxito en un mundo cambiante. Okay, moving on to our next item on the agenda, Superintendent Dempsey's district updates and recognition. Superintendent Dempsey.
Madam President, board members, thank you for joining us this evening. We have kind of a full house. We're not used to this anymore, but what we want to do this evening, our first item is we just want to put a name to a face with our campus administrative teams. Now, I will tell you that some of our campuses had open house scheduled for this evening, so not all of them are here. But what we're going to try to do in the future is the first meeting in every August, try to work around those so that we plan that and you get to put a name to a face. Because we do have some new faces, and these are very important individuals. I mentioned to them when I invited them that, I've been a part of now, I think, 4 blue ribbon schools with Gadsden and Cloudcroft. And of those blue ribbon schools, there's never been a weak leader in any one of them. And so leadership matters. It matters a lot. And these are the individuals that manage all that. And we ask a lot of them. So we want them to know how much we appreciate them and get an opportunity to recognize them. So just to put a name to a face, I think Mr. Araujo is going to help me with elementary. So, Mr. Araujo.
Gadsden Elementary, Ms. Marquez and Ms. Cervantes. Yaca Heights, Ms. Urbina, Mr. Mata, and Ms. Herrera. Desert Trail, Ms. Barajas and Ms. Aguilar. Chaparral Elementary, Mr. Sanchez, Ms. White, and Ms. Soto. Sunrise Elementary, Mr. Smith and Mr. Diaz. And Santa Teresa Elementary, Ms. Word and Ms. Leal.
Thank you, Mr. Araujo. Mr. Wogelman is going to help us with our secondary.
Madam President, there we go. Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Dempsey. Like Mr. Araujo, it's going to be my pleasure to introduce all accepting applicants from all qualified individuals at Gadsden Middle School. Santa Teresa Middle School, Danielle Rodriguez, Shannon Davis, and Angel Delgado. From Chaparral High School, Vicky Lopez, Robert Mata, Greg Martinez, and Laura Smith. Gadsden High School, Maria Legareta, Loren Guerrero, Victoria Perry, and Michael Lugo. A lot of maroon there. Santa Teresa High School, Hema Suggs, Aida Gensler, Lorraine Soriano, and Raul Villarana. And from Desert Pride Academy, having open house tonight, Diane Ludwig and Sophia Payen. And good to see her here tonight, principal at Alta Vista Early College High School, Liliana de la Garza. I think I got everybody. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Wogelmuth and Mr. Araujo, we really appreciate that. The board would like to, if we can kind of line up here using our steps, we can get a picture with the whole group. I think that'll be does that work? Oh, you want to get, you tell me how you, oh no, principals can do things in a snap. These people can do things effectively, right?
Okay, awesome.
Okay, let's go.
Because Mr. Villalobos is not here this evening, so I'm going to take those pictures for him.
there you go. I like it. Turn sideways here. So step in.
Claustrophobia.
It's because we're used to, we're,
Madam President, that concludes my report.
Thank you, Superintendent Dempsey. Yeah. Real quick, back there, Mr. Smith, you weren't here when they announced it, but that's our Sunrise Elementary principal. Welcome. Okay, moving on to item 4 of our agenda, board member reports. I'll go ahead and begin with Secretary Murillo.
Good evening, everybody. It has been an eventful first 2 weeks. I've heard from parents, from teachers, an exciting new school year. I know with new changes, it comes with adjustment, and so I ask all those parents to please be very patient with those teachers and administrators. Change is hard, but also change is good. Also, I think that's pretty much it. We haven't done much out on the outside. Just ready for the upcoming meetings every 2 weeks. I really hope that parents start coming to get informed, and if not, you can join our YouTube page and check the meetings afterwards. That is all.
Thank you, ma'am. Vice President Rodriguez.
Thank you. Well, I think I'm going to have to agree with Ms. Murillo. The new school year has been very, I guess it is eventful. There's many changes, and I know that parents, please be very patient. I know there's a lot of like the pickup, the drop off, and be careful. You know, we all have to be very careful with our kids are out there, so be patient, and I think things will start getting into place pretty quickly. And I mean, it's exciting to see all the principals here and the teams. You know, we can see that they're excited, and I know they're going to work hard to do things well for our kids, and I'm looking forward to this school year. And I think that just everyone being excited about it is what's going to make it a difference. So thank you to everyone, parents. Please participate. I know that some schools are already going to be holding coffee with the principal, so that's the way to keep informed of what's happening within the campuses. So please do attend those meetings. I know some of the schools, like Ms. Dempsey mentioned, are having open house. Some of them already had it. So again, if you want to know what's happening within your campus, please attend those meetings. And thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Rodriguez. Board Member Cano.
Well, I'd like to piggyback on both my board members. Everything, we can say that we can go out without a hitch, but you know, there's always going to be hitches. There's always going to be the little gremlin hiding. But as school year picks up, everything is going to get a little bit better. as we go along. And that's it for me.
Thank you, Mr. Khan. Okay, so welcome to another academic year. Bienvenidos a otro año escolar. I did have the opportunity to visit all of the Chaparral schools on the first day of school, and I went like a little dorky person. And thank you for those who played with me, because I had a sign, it's not this one, but it said first day of school, and I had the insignia of our district. And so thank you to the teachers who were willing to hold it, and I even got some middle schoolers to hold them. But it was awesome to be out there. I didn't get to visit all the campuses. I mean, no, I didn't get to visit all the classrooms. Did get to all the campuses, but that was wonderful. I got to meet with most of the principals, so that was an awesome experience. And then the only thing I want to remind the public is it is snake season, so please, 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 we live in the desert, and unfortunately there's viboritas and all sorts of critters. So, teach your kids to please be mindful of their surroundings. Watch where they're stepping, even inside buildings, because the critters do go inside our buildings. And so just be very careful with that. And then just also a reminder to our parents and our public and our stakeholders, everybody who lives in the Gadsden community, to go out and support our kiddos. I know right now, there's, as far as sports, right now they're barely starting their practices, and maybe in a couple of weeks is when the football season, I think the soccer season, I'm not sure what other sports will be out there, but go support our kids. And I wanted to thank I forgot her name, and I had it on the tip of my tongue. I was able to attend Chaparral Middle School's football meeting, the first meeting of the year, and so I encourage parents to seek help of your coaches, and I forgot her name, the physical trainer out there, in Chaparral, and I'm pretty sure your physical trainers in your other campuses will help you fill out that rank 1 documentation. But yeah, go out and support our kids, okay? And with that, I conclude my report. Moving on to item 5, which is Human Resources Report. That is just there for public knowledge. No action is required on behalf of the board. Okay, moving on to item 6. Do I hear a motion?
Madam President, I'd like to make a motion to accept modified agenda.
Mr. Cano has made a motion to accept the agenda as is. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. Moving on to item 7, our regular school board minutes for July 20th, 2023. Do I hear a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to accept the regular school board minutes for July 20th, 2023.
Vice President Rodriguez has made a motion to accept our regular board meetings for July 2023. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. Moving on to consent agenda. Do I hear a motion?
I make a motion that we accept the consent agenda.
Secretary Murillo has made a motion to accept the consent agenda as is. Are there any questions, comments? Okay. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. Moving on to open forum. Ms. Delgado, do we have any speakers this evening who would like to address the board?
Madam President, we do have open forum.
Thank you. Okay, so we do have 2 speakers this evening. Just a reminder to our 2 speakers, when you come up to the podium, make sure that you are speaking into the microphone, adjust it for your stature in case you need a higher or lower. Make sure you're speaking into the, so that we can all hear and their audience online can also hear. And then thank you, our tech individuals back there. Thank you. If you notice, there's a timer there now. And so that way, just keep in mind that you do have 5 minutes. And at the end of your 5 minutes, I will ask you to basically stop speaking, but it's not to be rude or anything. And then just a reminder that we can't respond to questions or comments that you're making. The protocol is that your information is entered into a Google document, and then Superintendent Dempsey will respond to you, or assign one of his leadership team members to address whatever concerns you bring to the board. Okay? Oh, yes. Okay. Before we continue, I do want to remind our speakers that the board discourages personal attacks upon staff, personnel, or any other persons in attendance or absent by individuals who address the board. Any person making public comments shall be solely responsible for the content of his or her comments. The board neither adopts nor assumes responsibility for any comments made by individuals during public comment. Presenters are cautioned that statements or representations concerning others that are false and damaging to a person's reputation may subject the presenter to civil action for defamation. The board prohibits personal threats and use of obscenity. Such speech is not protected and will not be permitted. The board further prohibits disruptive conduct. Disruptive conduct will not be tolerated. Any violations may result in the removal from the premises. The board also offers formal channels for board consideration of concerns and complaints, including involving individuals. Policy KE, KEB, KEC, and KED are provided by the board for disposition of such concerns and complaints. Okay, so I am going to call our first speaker, President of AFT, Dolores Nañez. Please step to the podium. Good evening, ma'am. Ms. Nañez, I'm going to have you pause because our microphone is not working, I believe. Yes.
Let me start again. President Flores, members of the board, Superintendent Dempsey, welcome to the new year. I think we're all off to a good year. You know, we'll always have some kind of issue on the burner, but you know, we manage, okay? But still, and I say, communication. You got to learn how to communicate. We're doing this, capturing kids' hearts. And it also has to do with capturing, communicating with adults. It's not just, you know, adults to kids. It should be adults to adults. So, you know, we got to keep that flowing because, we're not all the same. We're different creatures. So that's basically my message. We're always, like I say, we're always advocating for better pay. We're always advocating for better working conditions. We're always advocating for justice in the workplace, and we'll continue to do that. And we do, you know, like I say, we do have a good communication. I thank you for listening to us. I thank Mr. Dempsey for listening to us, and that lady over there too, Ms. Burciaga, I thank you. And, Ms. Maria Hernandez as well. So it's been moving in the right direction, we could say. And, but when we do have these little issues, we do try to iron them out before they become big ones. But don't forget raises. Don't forget. And that's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you, President Nañez. Have a good evening. Okay, next speaker is Andres Ramirez. Can you please step up to the podium, sir, and good evening.
Okay, just making sure it works before I actually start speaking. All righty, well, let me start by saying thank you for your service. Amen. People of the board and teachers and educators. I am a parent of kids that go to Chaparral Elementary and Chaparral High School. And I am one of many parents that have a certain concern that I will share with you today. But let me tell you that I grew up in Chaparral, so that means I'm a former student of Chaparral Elementary, former student of Chaparral Middle School, and Gadsden High School. I graduated in 2007. And I always had a good time and pleasant learning experience in those schools. And as a parent, I want to share the following. I would like my children to continue to receive the education that it was applied to me without any concern of politics or ideas in reference to personal ideologies. And the reason that I'm here today is to share because I realized that many educators and teachers that I came across while doing petition signing, because let me tell you, I am a volunteer with the referendum project with Better New Mexico, and I will be sharing some information as far as new state laws that were passed. And let me start by mentioning the laws, and I'm only going to mention 3 of them because these 3 laws are the ones that, in my opinion and many parents' opinion, at least in Chaparral, I've met many, are very concerned about what is Gadsden Independent School District going to do. Let me start off by sharing HB 7, House Bill 7, which has to do with reproductive and gender-affirming healthcare. This bill, to give you a brief review of what it's about, this bill is an attack on parental rights in children's healthcare regarding reproductive and transgender treatments. This bill leaves an open door for minors on school grounds or near school grounds to receive these medical procedures without, and let me quote that, without any parental consent. You can read for yourself these bills on any government website. Amen. I am also a pastor in Chaparral, so I serve the community not only as a parent, but also as a pastor and leader of the children of Chaparral. Amen. This is why you hear me say amen a lot. Anyway, let me continue to speak to you about HB 7. HB 7 also has to do with giving kids access, and the bill itself has no restrictions or limitation on the age. And I am aware that there is a certain law in New Mexico from the past that allegedly 14 years and older can make their decisions without parental consent, which I did not know about. I barely learned this, and it's a shame that we come to find out these things. I wouldn't let my baby girl, 15-year-old, she's with me here today, my lovely daughter and my lovely wife. And as a parent, I just want to let you know that there are many parents that are sharing my thoughts. And I believe that there are many parents that are concerned about these laws. No parental consent for such life-altering decisions is a danger, and it's an attack on parent rights. The next law I want to share with you is SB 397, and this bill is called School-Based Health Centers. Basically, this law facilitates a child's access to life-changing care without parental involvement. This law will build health clinics in or near schools, which could be beneficial, because if we hear this, it sounds beneficial, but then when you mention the kind of treatments that kids can do, then as a parent, you are concerned. Regardless of any political affiliation, I believe that any parent would want to be involved in the health care of their minors under 18 years old. Unfortunately, this law does not build in parental rights and allows the state to assume responsibility for students' health care on school property, including abortions and including gender modification referrals. And I believe that as a parent, regardless of the support, every parent should be involved in decision-making of such health care. The next law is SB 397. I'm sorry, that's SB 397, I already mentioned it. I already mentioned it, yes. So, I'm sorry, the next law is SB 13. SB 13 expands the Human Rights Act scope. Let me check my time. It's basically just gives public spaces to accommodate for certain groups.
Mr. Ramirez.
And that's all.
Yes.
Thank you for your time. And I also, real quick, bathrooms. I want to make sure that there's no biological men speaking, not speaking, but
I'm so sorry.
going into girls' restrooms. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Have a good evening. And I believe that concludes our speakers for this evening, addressing us in open forum. Okay, moving on to action items. We've got several this evening. So our first action item is 10A, consideration of and approval of a resolution determining the necessity for lease purchase of education technology equipment. Superintendent Dempsey.
Madam President, board members, obviously we have ed tech notes, resolution for ed tech to sell ed tech notes. I'm going to read two very specific statements, and then if you have questions, I'll be happy to answer them. The Board of Education of Gadsden Independent School District Number 16, Counties of Doñana and Otero, State of New Mexico, met in regular session in full conformity with the law and rules and regulations of the board at the Gadsden Administrative Complex, Sunland Park, New Mexico, on August 10th, 2023 at the hour of 5 o'clock. Resolution determining the necessity for lease purchase of education technology equipment, estimate of cost, statement of source of funds for lease purchase payments, directing district's municipal advisor and co-bond counsel to prepare lease purchase agreement for the district's acquisition of certain education technology equipment, and establishing date for meeting to consider a resolution granting final approval for the lease purchase of education technology equipment. All of that is the legalities of we're assigning, you, if approved, we're giving our bond counsel approval to move forward to sell ed tech notes.
Any questions, comments, or concerns for Superintendent Dempsey? Okay, so before I ask for motion, make sure, we do need a second motion, just FYI, it's listed there. So do I hear a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to accept action item 10A, consideration of and approval of a resolution determining the necessity for lease purchase of education technology equipment.
I second.
Okay, so Mrs. Rodriguez made the motion to approve action item 10A, and it was seconded by Secretary Murillo. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Okay, motion passes. Moving on to action item 10B, consideration of and approval of a resolution authorizing and approving submission of a completed application for financial assistance and project approval to the New Mexico Finance Authority. Superintendent Dempsey.
Madam President, board members, this one's a little shorter. We're approving now a resolution. This has to do with GO bonds, okay? And we're authorizing and approving submission of a completed application for financial assistance and project approval to the New Mexico Finance Authority for GO bonds.
Any questions, comments, or concerns for Superintendent Dempsey? Okay, do I hear a motion?
I make a motion that we accept item 10B, consideration of and approval of a resolution authorizing and approving submission of a completed application for financial assistance and project approval to the New Mexico Finance Authority.
Secretary Murillo has made a motion to accept action item 10B. If there's no further questions or comments, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. Moving on to action item 10C, consideration of and approval of a resolution authorizing sale of school bonds, establishing procedures for the sale and delivery of the bonds, authorizing and approving submission of a completed application for financial assistance and project approval to the New Mexico Finance Authority, and authorizing other matters related to the issuance of bonds. Superintendent Dempsey.
Madam President, board members, the Board of Education of Gadsden Independent School District Number 16, Counties of Doñana and Otero, State of New Mexico, met in regular session in full conformity with the law and the rules and regulations of the board at the Gadsden Administrative Complex, Sunland Park, New Mexico, on August 10th, 2023 at the hour of 5 o'clock. Resolution authorizing sale of school bonds, establishing procedures for the sale and delivery of the bonds, authorizing and approving submission of a completed application for financial assistance and project approval to the New Mexico Finance Authority, and authorizing other matters related to issuance of school bonds.
Okay, are there any questions, comments, or concerns for Superintendent Dempsey? Okay, so I would like to make a motion to accept action item 10C as listed, as I had read previously. Do I hear a second?
I second that motion.
Okay, so it's seconded by Vice President Rodriguez. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. Moving on to action item 10D, update policy A0300, ACA, and A0312, ACA-RB, non-discrimination on the basis of sex, contact information for Title IX coordinator. Superintendent Dempsey.
Madam President, board members, Ms. Burciaga is going to present this item.
Good afternoon, Madam President, members of the board, Mr. Superintendent. This evening, I am asking for your approval to update policy A0300 and A0312. We would be updating the contact information for Title IX coordinator. Currently, it is listed as Mr. Superintendent Travis Dempsey, but we did hire a new, very competent person who is now quickly becoming the most educated in this topic of Title IX. And so I am asking that you approve we change contact information from Mr. Dempsey to Ms. Brenda Mejia.
Are there any questions, comments, or concerns? I actually do have a question or a comment. So I know our district also views the safe school training, correct? Vector. And the reason I'm asking is,
yes,
correct?
Vector,
Okay.
yes.
Yes, correct. Because also for my employer, I just finished it, and so
Sure.
I left my notes at work, but
okay.
the reason it does tie to our district because my question is, on those videos, it talks about making sure that the name, which is now Brenda Mejia, is like, it almost seems like it's plastered everywhere. Is that going to be?
That's correct, and this is the first step in doing so, because
Very
in
nice.
policy, we would have to blast Mr. Dempsey's name. So
Yes.
if, once this gets changed, we'll be able to do that.
Okay, very nice. So that means those vector trainings are indeed, they're accurate, so very nice.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, any further questions or comments? Okay, do I hear a motion?
Madam President, I'd like to make a motion that we accept the update policy of A-0300 ACA and A-0312 ACA-RB, non-discrimination on the basis of sex, contact information for Title IX coordinator.
Okay, Board Member Cano has made a motion to accept action item 10D as he has stated. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, all opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your approval.
Okay, moving on to action item E, GISD district priorities for our school year 2023-2024. Superintendent Dempsey.
All right, Madam President, board members, we've spent some time in a work session to get some priorities put together. We've completed several surveys between the board and leadership, and so we've compiled that information. Here are the top 5, and these are they are in order of the most commonly recognized items. So bilingual education, and under bilingual education, I would say dual language was a strong comment and topic that people wanted us to pay attention to, and ensure that identification of ELs was appropriately done. Safety and security was the next. I was super excited to see high reliability schools as an initiative being, so high. Chronic absenteeism, and this really has to do with our students, right? And I guess I pause a minute to say that we also have to remind our adults that we're the models for our kids. And so when we're not there, there's a statement in that, whether we appreciate or agree with that or not. And so it's important that we model the appropriate behavior for our students. And we are working on Ms. Villalobos and her team have a whole group that is working towards that every single year, and they have some great ideas that we're going to try to implement. And then the accountability system, and that really talks about, New Mexico Public Education Department released test scores, school ranking scores, right? I think people kind of got really quickly back into the mode of that. I caution everybody to remember that we're struggling a little bit from a state perspective. We've changed assessment several times. We're in these weird spaces. So in order to do this right, we're going to have to get a very consistent state assessment, and we're going to have to use it multiple years to really see how we're doing. But I think I will say that when those accountability reports come out, and schools do well, it validates that hard work, and you see that in that staff, and it really gets them excited, and they're proud of themselves. So there's some good pieces there. These are the top 5, as I noted there. The next step, and I will admit that the beginning of school has, been a little, we're pretty busy around here, which is good. I'd like to recommend we table it one more time. We will have action plans ready by the August 24th meeting. I apologize, just have not had time to sit down and really put the leadership team to work on this. But I wanted to get it in front of you to know that those are recognized, and like I said, we'll have. And if you have specific comments, if those were some you were really concerned with, please shoot them to me and let me know so I make sure those are integrated as we build these action plans.
Questions, comments? So we just get together with you if like ours didn't make it, because in the end, they are very much embedded.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, I always have the list, and I know there's things we're always working on that, just because they're not on the list doesn't mean they're not getting addressed.
Okay, very nice. Okay, so with that, I'd like to make a motion for us to go ahead and table, let's see, 10 what? 10, yeah, I lost my, to go ahead and table action item 10E, our Gadsden District's priorities for this evening. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. Okay, moving on to action item 10F, proposed land lease agreement with Selco Partnerships, DBA Verizon Wireless. Superintendent Dempsey.
Madam President, board members, Ms. Cadena is going to help us with the next two items.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Good evening, Madam President, board members, Superintendent Dempsey. I believe last time for discussion, we brought you the proposal from Selco DBA Verizon Wireless proposing a cell tower at Santa Teresa Middle School. That would be an initial contract of 5 years, renewable every 5 years for 5 terms. And the district would earn $20,000 a year in rent from Verizon. Today, I bring for you the action on this proposal for the cell phone tower located at Santa Teresa Middle School. I stand for any questions.
Are there any questions, comments, or concerns for Ms. Cadena? I don't believe we have any. Thank you for your presentation. With that being said, do I hear a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to accept action item 10F.
Okay, Vice President.
Sorry, no, it is 10F.
Vice President Rodriguez has made a motion to accept action item 10F. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much, ma'am.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on. Oh, you're going to... No se vaya, pues. Moving on to our next agenda item is 10G, utility easement, access for El Paso Electric to propose Verizon cell phone tower. Ms. Cadena.
Good evening, Madam President, board members, Superintendent Dempsey. Related to the previous cell phone tower located at Santa Teresa Middle School, this is for proposing an approval of an easement, a utility easement for El Paso Electric to provide power to the cell phone tower. I stand for questions.
Any questions, comments, or concerns for Ms. Cadena regarding this action item? Okay. Do I hear a motion?
Madam President, I move to accept utility easement access for El Paso Electric to propose Verizon tower.
Board Member Gano has made a motion to accept action item 10G. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank
Have a good
you.
evening. Okay, moving on to our discussion items. We do have 3 discussion items this evening. Our first one is 11A, parent notification. Superintendent Dempsey.
Madam President, board members, this particular specific item Ms. Flores and I spoke about, and let's see if we can get that up. There we go. So I think when we talk about parent notifications, I think we have to have the conversation of we want to always encourage open and honest communication. We want to provide accurate information, and we want to encourage engagement. And then there's also applicable laws and policies. And so I had asked Ms. Cregan to help me here, our Director of Nursing, and what I think she can help us understand is what currently is in place with the student-based health centers, which is one aspect that we might, there might be some conversation about. And then any other areas, again, we want to emphasize to our staff, and I want you to know that I emphasize to our staff, we want to make sure that we're being open and transparent, because that's the beginning of a good relationship, and we want to build those good relationships, right? Ms. Cregan?
So good evening, Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Dempsey. So I'd just like to talk to you, one, about the school-based health centers. We've had them in our school district for, longer than I've been in this position, which is a long time. And so if you look at the legislation that I sent out earlier today, Ms. Flores, that you asked for, the rules for services to minors have been in place since the 1970s. We've not had a problem or an issue with it. Our school-based health centers do not provide abortions. They don't do surgery. They don't even do anything minor because they don't have the ability to support that. So if they don't do suturing, things like that when I say minor. They do provide reproductive services, which is birth control. We have provided that for many years, not many years, more years than many in our district in the school-based health centers. And that's been part of that law that was enacted in the 70s, where students have the right to seek those services, those confidential services. They do not perform or do any transgender, gender identity medications. If a student comes to them who states that they are transgender and they are having a mental health concern, that is addressed. I mean, one of the things that we look at is we look at, the risk to our students, and any student, regardless of their sexuality, regardless of, religious beliefs, we want to keep them safe. And one thing that I really pride myself in, and our school-based health centers, we've always tried to stay away. We're here for the kids. We're here for the safety of the kids. We're not here to provide some service that's going to be controversial, that gets involved with looking at, this group, it's for the safety of the students. And we're going to take, care of the students the best way that we can. What specific questions do you have that you'd like to ask that maybe I can address?
Okay, any questions, comments, or concerns? So I for the public to know, yes, I had addressed these issues with Superintendent Dempsey. And so I had hoped that you, I don't know, would have put on the form. So anyways, so this is a result because there's parents out there in the community that have submitted to our district, correct, what is entitled as a New Mexico Parental Guardian Notification and Consent School Form.
Mm-hmm.
And so you all have received these forms, correct?
Madam President, Board, yes, I'm sorry, Judy, go ahead.
We have received some of these forms.
Okay, and then what response have you given to the parents?
Well, I would like to tell you that what's come to me has been 2 forms, and they have been sent to me by our school nurses. And so, one of the things I think that, we are discussing as administration, we have to look at the state laws. And the state law says that students are allowed to receive services for confidential nature. But the things that I see on there are looking at the transgender, and I think I have a copy of that with me. We don't do anything with transgender. And, when we do our reproductive services, in the school-based health center, it's those kids that are coming in and seeking those services. Something you may not be aware of is there are a high number of sexually transmitted infections on our campuses, and they see it in groups. And so those are treated. When we look at our puberty programs in the school setting, which the school nurses give to 5th and 6th graders, we're very careful about what we put out. In fact, I ordered a book this summer to look at it because it looked great. And I'm like, oh, no, we're not going to give this out because that gets into the controversy and looking at, there were like 5 little statements scattered throughout the book in 5 little areas. And I'm like, no, that's not our purpose. Our purpose is to teach our students about the puberty issues. And I can go into it if you'd like, but I don't think we need to. But we're always open to having parents come. And so for that form, one thing I do have to remind you is that the law states that students can seek mental health services and they can seek those reproductive services and confidential services.
So, yeah, correct. I do understand the law, and it's even stated in the blue form, which is our emergency card, correct? And so I'm going to ask the question again. How are we responding? I get it, that it is the law, but how are we taking the time to respond to parents that are submitting this consent form to even educate them about the law?
I would love to do that. I would be glad to have a meeting with the parents. I'd be glad to address that in coffee, with the superintendent. But keep in mind too that this is something new that just hit us, this week. So I think you need to give us a chance to kind of look at it and respond. The other thing I just have to say is the school district is not in the business of changing somebody's ideology. We all have our own religious beliefs, we have our own political beliefs, but that's not what our goal is. Our goal is to provide students with a solid education. We are here to provide students with care that's appropriate for them. We're not looking at changing anybody's belief or value system.
Okay. And then my other question was, correct me if I'm wrong, and I try to, I'm the kind of parent that when I submit any forms to the district, I do make copies and keep it, and I'm like, and where did I put my file? Couldn't find it, but the reason I'm bringing that up is because, correct me if I'm wrong, was this the first time that the blurb in the what is it, in the emergency cards? Because for me, I'm going to say that it's the first time that I see, I might be wrong, where it says New Mexico law does not require parental consent for treatment. Is that the first time, or has it been there in the past?
So I made the mistake, having nothing to do, and it wasn't a mistake, it was with looking at what we could do to better serve our parents to get information out. So my mistake was, darn it, I sent it out at the same time these bills were passed. So there was no, ours went to print way back in spring, nothing to do with that. That was to put that out there for parents because there's updates if you look at, and it's never been on the back before, for Benadryl, for Tylenol, for temp greater than 100. Those are all brand new. And so the other piece in there was to let parents know. And then also, too, because we have a hard time getting consents back when we're doing our puberty program. We have a hard time getting consents back when we do the dental program. So we have a dental sealant program. We've been working with Department of Health for greater than 20 years. They come into our first graders. They send out permission slips. Second graders get sealants. They follow up with third graders if parents sign that. We have a hard time getting those back. So we want parents to know that those things are out there. So it was really in being open. It had nothing to do with what we're talking about today.
Okay.
Madam President, board members, what I might suggest, that statement does speak to an honest and open relationship, because parents should know that. And the fact that these laws are decades ago, I think it speaks to our attempt to be very honest and transparent.
Okay. No, and thank you, Ms. Cregan, because you actually answered my question, which was going to be that it's the first time that I see as a parent the Tylenol, the antibiotic ointment, whatnot.
Right.
And so, yeah.
And that
then-
has to do with our standing orders. As they change, we update.
Okay.
And that comes from Department of Health.
Okay. So then, I guess my other question would be, what role does our district have in, or is there any role in educating our parents about the laws that are being passed? Because like you said, I fully understand that you did not, you're doing this because that should have been there.
Totally different.
And totally different. And so, but I guess my question is that I'm going to admit that, do I know all the laws that exist in the state of New Mexico by memory? Absolutely not. Do I need to become better informed? Absolutely yes, and I would encourage all parents to do that. So my question is, does the district have a role, and maybe it's more for superintendency, of educating parents with regards to the laws? Because, I know it's also stated in Spanish or not? Yeah, it's also stated, that law is stated in Spanish. So what I'm curious is are we going to educate our parents what that means, or are we going to go on a case-by-case basis, which it sounds like if you're more than, it sounds like your door is open to whoever wants to come and have a conversation so that you can help educate them, but are we going to take the role of educating, or just here it is, read it, and then on a case-by-case scenario, I guess?
Madam President, board members, I'll be happy to have that as a topic for one of our future coffee with the superintendents.
Yes.
Ms. Villalobos can help us, and we'll be happy to have that. And I'll probably utilize Ms. Cregan to help guide me through it. But again, we I don't know, I can't recall if we've had very specific conversations about student-based health centers in the last several years. So either way, I think it's good to have that. I'd like to see an increased use of our student-based health center for colds and strep and those kind of things to keep more and more students in school. That's really where the partnership with student-based health centers is trying to take care of cold and flu and symptoms of that nature without students having to leave school, right? And you know, take a half day off and all that. But I would be happy to have that as a topic for a future one. We have one scheduled next week. I probably won't be able to pull that one off, but the following, Ms. Villalobos, if you'll help me, we'll be glad to get that on there.
And that's awesome because, you know, not everybody knows about the law. And right now we're talking about these specific laws, but that would be awesome for any law that's passed that is going to affect our students or our campuses to educate our parents. So, it's awesome to hear that, yes, I guess so the answer is yes, I guess we do play a role in educating our parents as far as just what the law is and what entails and how it impacts the school district.
Madam President, absolutely we do. And I can tell you that typically it's April, May, but towards the closing of legislative sessions, I include legislative updates in our coffee with the superintendent, which have been well received, quite frankly. But we'll make sure this specific topic is on there for the future.
Okay. And then I just wanted to I reiterate, I believe, what I heard you say, and correct me if I'm wrong, just for the audience, and I know that's out there in person or also watching online, that at our student-based health centers, there's no abortions, no.
In fact, I have a letter that's put out by PED, and I'd be glad to, you know, it says right in the letter from PED and DOH, and it talks about that school-based health centers do not provide abortions or gender-affirming care. They can provide referrals and emotional support to students undergoing these difficult topics, but it is solely up to the students and, if considered underage by law, their consenting adults as to how they choose to move forward with these sensitive and personal issues.
And so that was sent out to our District 1.
No, this was, this was sent out by New Mexico DOH and PED in, you know, as I reached out to our school-based health center, and I asked them, you know, specifically, because I knew they didn't provide those services, so I asked them, do you have anything? So this is what PED and DOH put out, and so Mr. Flores, who I talked to, is the one that sent that to me. I'd be glad to forward it to you.
Okay. And so then I have a suggestion, and I realize that you might have just gone to, and then maybe there's going to be more forms coming in, is a response to the parent, I think, would be greatly appreciated, I think, is the right thing to do. And then my other question is when it comes to student-based health centers, and I apologize because I know I asked you, and I didn't have a chance to see the email, but is there a consent form?
Yes, absolutely. They have a consent form for the students when they go into the school-based health center.
Okay. And then my last question is, I'm playing devil's advocate here. Okay?
You know what? That's okay.
So I'm going to use the topic of abortion. So we understand no abortion is done at our student health-based centers. But let's say that it's not. So let's say that my daughter is a student at Gadsden High School, and so I totally understand that if she is seeking contraceptive services, materials, or birth control, that she can do that without the consent of myself or dad. I get that. Okay, and so the child's going to do that. So then, in the event that she was to become pregnant, and so then that she seeks an abortion, would that, I know it's not going to happen in the school-based centers, but then would counseling be done for her and then sent out? That's my question is, if that's what my daughter is seeking, then where is she sent? Because these are real questions that constituents are asking me.
She's not sent any place, okay? That's the first thing you need to know. She has the right to seek the mental health services and the confidential services without parental consent. And, I will tell you, my daughter is now out of school. But when she was in high school, I was very concerned too, because I'm like you all, a very concerned parent about services provided. And, you know, that law was passed before I think any of us in this room were even able to vote. And, you know, I think, you know, the first time we hear it, we're like, what? You know, and you're thinking, who voted for this? So when you think about that and you think about the history of it, you know, please think about the history with Gadsden and the school-based health centers. I would like to kind of divert for a little bit and reiterate what Mr. Dempsey says. The majority of care that our school-based health center services provide are those care for those students that come in, you know, with the strep throat, with a disease, an infectious disease that they can treat, get antibiotics for it, keep them in school so that we're not sending them home, or they're getting that and then they're able to come back within 24 hours without having the parents, you know, take them to a facility, get the medication, go to the pharmacist. So, and they don't keep a lot of things on the school grounds, a lot of medication. So please don't think it's a running pharmacy out there, because it's not. But it just helps the parents with those students. And if it's not a confidential service for mental health, you know, or reproductive services, parents are always, you know, they have a consent form they sign either ahead of time or parents are called.
Okay, so so then going back to my original question, so if my daughter was wanting an abortion, with the school-based health center, what's the word?
Like guide her to get an abortion?
Refer her to who? Because
that, you know, that
just
would
making sure.
be up to your daughter. What they're going to do is support her mental health-wise,
Okay.
but they're not going to tell her, this is where you can go get this abortion.
Okay, so I think you've answered maybe my question and many questions of constituents, where it's like really what it is the mental health service of our kids.
Right.
Okay.
And we're not going to deny those services, because we don't want a student to be suicidal for whatever reason. You know, we want to prevent suicide.
Okay, and so if I'm understanding correctly, your door is an open door, and Mr. Dempsey, for any parent to come and
Absolutely.
further continue this discussion if they need to.
Absolutely. And if a principal calls and says, can you come do a training at my school? Absolutely. When we do our puberty education, any parent is welcome to come.
Okay, and then, I lost my train of thought. I believe Secretary Murillo has a question or comment. Go ahead, ma'am.
So 2 questions. So you said that if someone gets pregnant, if this person wants the resources, that we don't provide that? We don't provide the resources at all?
Not to my knowledge.
okay.
Not to my knowledge. And I would be glad, you know, when I talked to, you know, Ernesto earlier from La Clinica, he's also willing to come, you know, and speak with you all if you would like.
Because, and if we do provide the resources, I would like for this student to receive the resources on both sides, keeping the baby and the abortion. I think we shouldn't just, you know, push them to one side. But I don't know what's the case, because I've never been in the situation, so.
Yeah, and keep in mind, you know, our goal isn't to change somebody's mind or
Right.
their belief, you know, and that's not the goal of the school-based health centers.
Right.
Our goal is to keep the kids safe.
Right. Now, the other question that I have, and this is because it happened to me personally, but so you guys give to the females the pill for contraceptive?
They do the pill.
Okay, so if that student, because they don't know what they're doing, they don't know their background, their health history, if something happens to them, get sick because you guys provided this pill, who becomes liable?
So that is a school-based health center, and there is an MOU that we sign with the school-based health center. They carry their own liability insurance. The providers, you know, carry their liability insurance for what they need professionally and what their organization requires.
So a parent cannot come and sue us because we provided the pill and something happened to that student?
No, I mean, you can always sue. I mean, you can sue because you don't like the color of my glasses.
No.
But, you know, with that MOU and with the insurance and that, the liability statement in there, they will go looking at the school-based health center.
Okay.
But know that they always can. I mean, they can always name us.
Okay, thanks.
Vice President Rodriguez, go ahead.
Thank you, President Flores. I think that I just want to, I guess, inform the parents. I mean, you're obviously saying it here, right, that there's an open door policy. And I think that that's what's most important, right? If you have questions, please come forward and ask. And come forward and ask the correct people, because if you ask someone that doesn't know or is not well informed, well, you're going to get information that's incorrect, and there's going to be more frustration. So I really encourage anyone that has any questions, please come forward and ask the appropriate person. As for the information, I think it is critical. You know, you mentioned that you talk about the laws, and yes, I've been present at those, and so I know that that is happening. And so many times it creates confusion because you don't understand. A lot of the lingo might be even, you know, it'll just create some confusion instead of you understanding it more. But again, if you don't understand, please come forward and ask those questions so that you understand what is happening. And about the consent, I know that that is given, you know, in order for the child to receive any services without, not speaking about the birth control, but once they become like a patient of the Student Health-Based Center, that consent needs to be formed prior to them receiving the services, correct? So I think that one of the most important things that I would definitely request is that we advocate and we create more information of what kind of services are rendered at the health centers. It is critical that our parents know that for colds or things like that, you know, it avoids you, first of all, it's an expense that you can, you know, you won't have to deal with if you're not taking them, you know, pulling them out of school to take them to their pediatrician, they can go there. So I think that it would be very informative and very necessary to really talk about everything that is being done and can be done there at the health-based centers.
You know, one thing I'd like to add that I bet you none of you know about the school-based health center is they do an acculturation group for the migrants that have come over, and they work with those so that they can, you know, kind of teach them, you know, how to get into the system, how to work, and they talk to them about, you know, how do you feel about this? And, you know, I can't tell you everything that goes on in the group, but they've had really good success with that, you know, acculturation group. But we don't think about school-based health centers providing those type of services. We always focus on, you know, the small piece of what they do, when really they're great partners to work with, and they benefit our students in many more ways.
I guess I would add is that I appreciate, yes, and you're definitely right, sir, that you have educated the public on other legislation that has been passed, but this is like a very hot topic recently, right? And so thank you, because it sounds like you're going to be addressing these issues and topics and laws in one of your future coffees with the superintendent, so that's very much appreciated. And so I guess what I'll do also as a parent is I will make an appointment with you to also address, you know, things, because you hear all sorts of things, you go your social media, and you know, and that's not, going to social media is, I mean, you gotta be careful with that, but the bottom line is, for me, is I'm thinking I've gotta educate myself, and so, but I always like to look at different angles to see what is the truth, because, you know,
and that's okay to do that too, because otherwise you don't know. If you just take one thing, you never do know what's the truth, so that is good.
Okay. Mr. Cano, go ahead.
I've got probably a suggestion that we can do. Well, during the school years, we have open houses for all the students, schools and everything, so they can go meet their teachers. And why don't we do that for the health center?
That would be great. I will tell you they will be open to it.
I think that'll be the way. That way they can understand how the system works and how everything goes, instead of, again, turning into the media, doing this, doing that. What's the actual factual? I mean, coming from the health field, you know, that's, if we're going to get somewhere, if we go and get a diagnosis from a doctor, you know, yes, we always going to want a second opinion, you know, just in case if it's a heavy surgery or whatever. But if we're not familiar, that's what's the first thing we do. Hey, you're going to have your gallbladder taken out. Okay, what's a gallbladder? What's the first thing we do? Internet. It'll tell you what a gallbladder is and what the procedure details of it. And sometimes it's blown out of proportion. you know? So I think that maybe having an open house the way we do with our high schools and middle schools and elementary schools, maybe we should do that for the health. So that way if the parents have any health or they can understand, you know, a part. Because I know that, you know, bringing up 3 goddaughters, you know, it's hard because they won't talk to you because thinking that, oh, well, he's going to judge me, you know. And I always had open conversations with my goddaughters when they were with me, and you know, it turned out great, you know. So, but I think doing an open house for healthcare would be something that we
That's
should
an
do.
excellent idea.
Madam President, board members, that is a fabulous idea, and the other good news is that way La Clinica is providing those detailed answers that I think you all know this, but we're very blessed to have Judy and her experience working towards us. There's going to be procedural questions from that perspective I've never experienced, so I think that's a fabulous idea. We'll start working on possibly making that request and see if we can't get those scheduled.
And I guess I would like to, a last thing is that I'm hoping probably, you know how it is related, when you have the, Rosie help me with this, like when you have meetings with parents and you're teaching them how to parent and all of that, it is so important because, you know, I would hope that my own children, and what parent would not want their own children, that even if it's a hard topic, that they come to you and have that trust and that build those relationships. And sometimes we are, when our children are born, we are not given a manual of, here you go, this is how you parent. It is tough, and I'm still learning even with my 4-year-old. And have I made many mistakes? Absolutely. But I think it's important also to help our parents through those parent education centers, I guess, and opportunities in helping parents learn how to parent. None of us are experts at that, but helping one another to develop those relationships so that, you know, so when we are encountered with difficult things in our lives, the hope is our children will come to us and that we will react in a not a you know what I'm saying, I'm lost for words, in a positive manner, a supportive manner for our children, and that they can trust us before going to a stranger, I would say. But just food for thought. Any other questions, comments, or concerns? Okay. Thank you very much for your time, Ms. Cregan. Have a good evening. Okay, moving on to discussion item 11B, Gadsden Independent School District Policy JRD-R, student photographs. Superintendent Dempsey.
Madam President, board members, as we mentioned earlier, just in the previous topic, there's always items that we learn from. Well, this year I'm completing my, I think it'll be my 12th year as superintendent. And unfortunately, there's a regulation that I had never seen before. We've been working on student photographs, and Mr. Wogemuth brought this to me and you know, explained to me what our GISD regulation. I looked back at some previous districts that I'd been a part of, and they have it too. However, I've never done this. So the regulation says that every year I'm going to come to the board and that I'm going to recommend a photographer. It's not really an RFP process because I'm not paying them to do anything, but I'm giving them access to our kids. And it has a very clear criteria assorted, you know, with appropriate timelines, quality of services, reliability, and cost of these photographs. Well, I've never done this. And now going on 12 years, I've never once done it. We have 2 major vendors that work with us. What I'm proposing to do, and I just want your thoughts on this, is I've already divvied up the schools, and I've cut the schools in half, assigned one vendor half of the schools, the other vendor the other half, and I've given them the scoring rubric that I'll use at the end of the year. And then at that point, I'll come back to the board and say, here's how this shook out. I'm going to make a recommendation of which vendor we're going to use for the 24-25 school year. Because right now, I have no way to even assess which vendor's better because I haven't bought school photos in a long time. And so I don't know that. So it'll include some parent surveys. That'll be a big piece, and then cost to our parents and quality. It also, the one piece that's very important to us is the way the information's provided back to the district It has to be done in a very specific format so we can upload it to the student information system. And that's going to be a very critical component of who gets awarded that. So both went, what I have it set up in my email as drafts, and I wanted to hear from the board to make sure you're comfortable with that process, and they're set to go out tomorrow, so we would be able to get those set up.
Questions, comments, concerns? But my only question is, this is only the photographs that go for like the CUMES and in the system, you're not talking about like sports pictures and other
Actually,
stuff like that?
Let's see, Mr. Wogan, if he's going to save me here. Mr. Hernandez, okay. I believe it's everything. And that's really what I'm looking for. I'm looking at a photography vendor that can take care of it all, right? Because I can't be going to all these different spaces, because even those sports photos have to be uploaded into our yearbook. That's a tremendous amount of work to get all that done. And so I need a vendor that's very in tune to our needs and able to provide those in a manner. So I'm really looking for them to do it all.
So, and here goes another question. Then I'll let you, Surya. How about, because some of our schools do use pictures such as a picture with Santa Claus or the Easter Bunny as a form of fundraising. Will they still continue to be able to do that, or will the company have to do that?
No, I'm not looking to replace any of those. I think people really appreciate those holiday type pictures, and I'm not looking to get involved in that. It's really yearbook, student information system, and then sometimes we deal with IDs, but I think we figure out a way through the whole ID piece, which at one point was a little complicated for us.
Secretary Murillo, go ahead.
So will that be like the annual pictures, like hot shots that they use?
So,
they will be something like that?
The
and
two
then with graduation pictures, which is someone else, and is that what we're talking about? Like all of them in one? Okay.
Madam President, board members, what I'm trying to do, and it's two major vendors, Life Touch and Hot Shots, and I'm going to give them both the same opportunity. Now, sometimes these photography companies will offer like kind of freebies. If you'll see the rubric, it says nothing about freebies. Those freebies will not be included in my decision. So if they choose to do that, that's on them. That's not going to sway my decision in any way, shape, or form.
Go ahead, ma'am.
Madam President. So what about I guess I understand it, but it's a little bit more complicated than it seems. What about like the small companies that take pictures? I know like at Gadsden High School, there's a photographer that does the pictures, and then they also do not the posters, you know, where they have the different support, or what are they called, when they sell the business cards. And so would that eliminate them?
Madam President, board members, no, I definitely am going to have to be a little careful through that. Definitely that's not the goal. The ultimate goal is student information system in a very specific format so I can upload it, and yearbook. Those are the big ones.
Okay, any further questions, comments, or concerns? Okay, thank you, sir. Moving on to discussion item 11C, Gadsden High School swimming pool. Superintendent Dempsey.
Madam President, board members, Mr. Smythe is going to help us with this item.
Madam President, school board members, Superintendent Dempsey. So I'm here to kind of update everybody on our discussion that was held back in January 2023 in regards to the Gadsden High School swimming pool. So just to kind of recap what we discussed back in January, we had some initial indicators that were hit on by Palms and Associates, our insurer for the district. And we also had a few costs that were reflected in this form here. So we needed, based on Palms and Associates at that time, it was suggested that we have a structural assessment done by a structural engineer for the facility. We kind of broke that down to about $20,000. If we can scroll down a little bit, Mr. Snowdy, please. Go ahead and keep going. So we do need some considerable upgrades to the facility itself, including the roof replacement, also in some HVAC upgrades, stuff like that. Structural integrity of the pool. One of the things that I really wanted to go back and focus on is that we're looking at, these figures here at the bottom. The figure in red is what the pool actually brought in terms of money earned during the last year that it was open. We're looking at about $480,000 cost. And that might be a little bit on the low side now with the price of materials continuing to rise, just to get us kind of up and going. The annual cost that would reoccur to the district would be about $60,000. I do think that would probably be a little on the low side as well at this time. So in February of 2023, Palms conducted another loss control risk assessment and had similar findings to the recommendations as the 2022 assessment, including major settling and the recommendation to conduct a structural assessment. A structural assessment was conducted in May 2023 by Lilly Engineering of Las Cruces, New Mexico. The report was received by the district in June of 2023 and determined that the locker room for the building is safe to use and that there is signs of settling that indicate that there is a possible leak under the structure. The source of the leak is unknown, and discovery of the leak will involve invasive discovery and cost. In May of 2023, there were 3 incidents that can all be confirmed where students were found swimming in the pool unsupervised. It was determined that they had climbed the fence and possibly scaled the roof of the building to gain access to the pool. PPD and support services, with Mr. Dempsey's approval, determined that in order to mitigate the district's liability, it would be necessary to drain the swimming pool. From May to July of 2023, GISD employed only 1 wastewater tech, who until recently did not have a swimming pool operator certification. Also, this wastewater tech was the sole person maintaining 3 sewage plants, in addition to a multitude of sewage lift stations throughout the district, because the second wastewater tech was not hired until the first week of July 2023. The swimming pool liner still is in need of replacement at the estimated cost of around $240,000. The funding source for this expense has not yet been determined, since both construction and the physical plant department have over 59 projects that are addressing infrastructure and safety for all district campuses. During the month of July 2023, athletics and the physical plant met with high school site administrators to discuss athletic priorities determined by coaching staff. The swimming pool was not listed as an athletic priority by GHS coaches. Among other minor items, GHS coaches listed in addition an additional weight room, field house, locker rooms for baseball and softball. The items listed as priorities are being priced, but will probably surpass $7 million for GHS alone. That does not include the wish list for Santa Teresa High School or Chaparral High School, which I can tell you that the top priority for all 3 of our high schools was a new weight room, or an additional weight room. So that being said, I stand for any questions.
Questions, comments, concerns? Go ahead,
Madam
Mr. Rodriguez.
President, just a question on the, you say the GHS coaches, and so basically it's, what's the number of coaches?
I couldn't tell you off the top of my head. I know that Ms. Nugez and Ms. Legarreta met with every single coach on the campus. Ms. Legarreta had them, we do have a spreadsheet that was created as well. Okay. That it was kind of a wish and want list, right? What they absolutely needed and what they wished that they could have, right? So every varsity coach was included in those meetings. They had the opportunity to voice what they felt their program was in dire need of and what they would love to have, right? And one of the things that was on the top of the wish list was an additional weight room.
So with that said, obviously it's not going to be a priority to them because you're asking them what their needs are. So that's, obviously they're gonna say a weight room because that's what they
Right.
need. But considering, what the coaches need, but also what the community is asking for, has there been any consideration? Because you listed several things here.
Correct.
The pros and the cons, stating about the kids going into the premises, the wastewater tech.
Right.
And then you said until recently. So does that mean that now the tech has a certification, a swimming pool operator certification?
Yes.
Okay, so then we have progressed on that. And then when you state the 240,000, that is already included what you have previously presented to us, right? That's on the spreadsheet? It's already part of it.
Yes.
So that's for a total, I'm sorry.
And remember that this is a guesstimate, okay? These are guesstimate costs. I can tell you right now that the condition of the facility to get it up to GISD standards, it will be over $500,000.
So then what's the 480,000?
That's
That you're
just what we,
giving one-time
that's what we
repair.
ballpark figured last January. But why I'm saying over $500,000 is I've seen progressive increase in costs in building supplies and materials. Not only that, but if we're gonna dive into this, then we need to see where that leak's coming from. And it's not as simple as a traditional foundational leak because it is an elevated deck that's got about 5 feet of cement poured on top of it. So our pipes, it could be leaking up at the top, we might luck out, or we might have to dig 5 feet out of cement, and then the whole run of the building, which is going to be extremely expensive.
Right, no, I understand. And then your last bullet where it states that it'll surpass the 7 million just for GHS. So what are we looking at Santa Teresa and Chaparral, their wish list?
It's fairly comparable. It's fairly comparable. I would say all within about $1 million of each other.
Which tells us that those needs are, I guess, they are necessary within the campuses because I guess they're very similar. What coaches want at one campus and another campus. So
Right.
aside from the pool conversation, this is something that they're going to be seeking as well as coaches, correct?
Yes, ma'am. It's, it was very insightful and it was very beneficial for us to sit down and have these conversations with these coaches. And I think it's going to be, we're planning an additional meeting with them as well to kind of go over what is going to be feasible at this moment and what we'll have to kind of push to the back burner, right? Because there's no way we're coming up with $7 million for each school site right now. But, it was a good, the conversation was good, and they were very comparable to one another, right? One of the things for the softball, baseball program was those field houses, those restrooms that each facility really needs desperately. And then the weight room, of course, was similar. There were similar wants and needs for locker room facilities, things along those lines. But I can tell you right now that all of these little issues have big dollar signs, right? And I just, going back to the community and what the community wants. I can't speak to what the community wants. I've only talked to our coaches, and they're speaking on behalf of their players. And to me, it just didn't seem like that was a thought in their mind.
So just one other thing. You mentioned that now the locker room or area has been approved. So how did it go from not being able to be utilized to now being utilized in 2023?
So we pulled everybody out of that facility until the structural assessment of the building was done. So when Lilly Engineering came back with their report and they said that the facility was safe to be occupied, but there was an underlying, there's an underlying problem still occurring, correct? So while the building is safe to be occupied right now, we need to determine if we're going to proceed with that facility, and we've got to address an underlying issue of there's something, water is getting under the building somehow. How it's happening, that's yet to be determined, and that's what we have to decide on because it will be very invasive and it's going to be costly.
I do have some questions.
Yes, ma'am.
So, I guess I'm this is me, I'm not talking for the board, but I'm kind of very disheartened that we were not informed of that there was kids swimming in the swimming pool and that a decision was made to empty the pool. I wish I would have known, not that I could do anything, but that would have been greatly appreciated had that been communicated to us. Reason because the last time we were here, definitely we know, and in this presentation, definitely we know that the liner needs to be replaced. And I do remember that the reason we were hesitating on removing the water is because exposing the liner to the sun is going to damage it. So, if I may continue, sir?
Sure.
So, I hate saying this, but are we self-sabotaging in order to close the pool?
No, ma'am. So whenever we met in January, and we toured the facility, it was requested that we do an additional PALMS assessment. So that was performed in February of 2023. We had another individual from PALMS and Associates that came down and did the assessment. It wasn't the original, so we had two sets of eyes. Very similar reports. One of the things that he did mention was that the pool liner itself, he could tell was very much in need of replacement, and that edges were rolled. So that immediately right there in that report was pretty much telling us what we had already kind of thought, that the liner was going to need to be replaced. I spoke with our construction department to try to indicate or figure out when that pool liner was installed, and it was installed back in early 2001, or maybe somewhere in that time, between 97, I can't remember off the top of my head. But that pool liner has outlived its life by over 10 years. So it wasn't, and I understand, and we were trying to do this as cost-effective as possible. That's why I was so against not draining the pool initially. But whenever two factors that came into play, the first and foremost was the safety of the kids at Gadsden High School. They found a way to access the pool, and they were accessing it on a regular basis. We know of 3. I'm sure that there was more, because when my water tech was out there, we were finding clothing articles, we were finding hair ties, we were finding all sorts of things in the pool, which was very, very concerning to us. Once I received our PALMS report, and we know for sure now that I can say that we will have to replace that liner no matter what.
Okay, and I guess hindsight, I'm just thinking of this. I wish we would have thought this. Cameras would have been very nice to identify students and at least make that like is the word deterrence or something like that, like to keep them from climbing. Not that it's gonna keep them, but at least we would have captured them on camera to see who they.
We did capture individuals on camera, but the video quality was of such that we couldn't specifically say, hey, we know exactly who these kiddos are. So.
Okay, and then my next question is, I'm going to request if you can submit to the board I don't know if it's a lengthy report. I would like to see the Lilly Engineering report that was given to the district, please. And then what else? So I'm struggling with the fact that Lilly Engineering is saying that it is safe to use it as a locker room.
Right.
But then that there's a leak. And so I'm like, I'm not comfortable allowing a visiting team to use a locker room that we said not too long ago. And I get it, it's not your call, you had them make the report.
Yes, ma'am.
I just don't feel comfortable allowing visiting teams to be in a building that has, you want to talk about liability? That's a liability right there. I don't know. What are your thoughts, sir?
Madam President, board members, I think the liability then falls on the company that did the report for us. That's why we bring in those experts. We're not, Mr. Smythe has some really good experience with building. I'm not a construction expert or definitely not a structural engineer, but here's what the other thing so the liability, to answer your question, liability falls on that contractor. And, they have surety bonds, which is an insurance policy in case something were to happen. But I think the other thing that solved for us was we thought the liner was leaking. we now know it's not the liner. And so in order to find this leak, there's a way to do it. And Mr. Smythe and I have had this conversation, but what you would do is pressurize the water pipes. And if you have a weak area in one of those water pipes or multiple, you're going to create more leaks to find the leak. It's almost like the worst case scenario. It would have been easier if the liner was leaking, trust me. Because we don't know if it's the pipes in the facility. It could be the neighboring facilities. And think of all that concrete and exploratory work it would take. And it's somewhere we're going to have to do it. I mean, right? We're going to have to figure this out. It's a lot of work.
And to piggyback on that, Mr. Dempsey, as well, it's kind of a guessing game. We do know that it's not the liner. I had my staff perform a leak test on the pool itself, and the pool is not leaking, which is good and bad, like Mr. Dempsey said. Now, the plumbing, where we have to pressurize the system, exactly like Mr. Dempsey said. But it could also be our storm drainage system, okay? It could also be how the water is shedding off of the roof. There's a storm drain that goes around the entire deck of the pool. So we have to look into every single one of those options. And every one of those options is very invasive, and it includes breaking cement. It includes a lot of work to be able to do that. In order to test those pipes, it requires a specialist to come in and do that for us. And with the understanding that plumbing is pretty old, especially in that area. And once we start putting pressure to it, where we have a system that was originally built off of a well that maybe provided tops 50 PSI worth of pressure, and now you come in and you pressurize the system up to 60, 75 PSI, and you start breaking pipe.
So I guess I'm going to make this comment. It's like, I mean, obviously the liner needs to be replaced, so therefore,
Yes, ma'am.
the decision was made to remove the water, because it's, like you said, 10 years? I forgot to,
It's
like
about
really
10,
old.
it's a little over 10 years past its lifespan, yes, ma'am.
Okay, so it had to be replaced, so at this point, it's being exposed to the heat, which we know at this point, it needs to be replaced, so that's
Correct.
that. I guess what I want to say is, we're going to have, at this point, colleagues, board members, we're going to have to make a decision like ASAP, because it's costly either way, but I'm also not, I guess, I want the input of the community to see what they think and to educate, like to actually, hopefully people are watching online, and maybe they're going to watch the recording later on, but I think it's important, a suggestion would be, sir, maybe having a community meeting regarding the swimming pool at Gadsden High School, and inviting the whole community, I mean, specifically inviting the Gadsden High School community, but other areas that have benefited from the past, and just, giving them the opportunity to educate themselves, like you're educating us on what has happened thus far, and getting their input to see, what they think. Because if everything was in perfect condition, then we'd be asking ourselves, do we still want to keep the swimming pool because it's not bringing income into the district, would be the case, but it's not the case. And so, if that was the case, then I would want a community meeting so that our community can help us come up with ideas as far as how to make it more profitable, but it's not the case. It's like everything's pointing to, unfortunately, the possibility of, I don't know what you call it, demolishing it or filling it or whatever, but those are my suggestions. I don't know, what do y'all think, fellow board members?
Madam President, board members, if I can. I think at the end of the day, you got to, the decision about the pool, I personally don't think has to happen tomorrow. I think we have time to try to figure out this leak piece, and then that determines the overall cost of the project, if you will. So I would prefer we pause, continue to let Mr. Smythe and his team try to gradually assess. If we can find those leaks, then we're going to be far ahead of this game. And then I just reminded, and you know, we haven't had a chance to have this conversation, but you know, it's coming, and we know we have big projects coming. Gadsden Middle School, Chaparral Middle School, and ST Middle. Those are, you know, a year ago, we started having the conversation around Gadsden Middle. Ms. Vella's here, I think. Yep, Nancy's always there, right? Thank you. I think the first conversation, I remember a total, and they always throw the first numbers at you. I think it was 47 million at the time. Today, we're at 63. That's that rising cost of materials. Our match is right now, oh, Jessica, you gave me this, $38 million? Oh, we're now, so the project now, see, I'm behind. The project now is, in total budget, 100 million. Our match is now $38 million. And so, without question in my mind, I feel like I have to prioritize that project. Now, what we might have to do is pause some of these bigger projects. But as was mentioned, you know, the construction department right now is managing about 50 projects. So we're just going to have to maybe, you know, spend some time taking a look at those projects and upcoming projects and decide, okay, if we're going to do this, we fit it in here. But I suggest we give Shane and his team a little bit more time to try to determine what this might look like. And I would even press back on anybody. I mean, I'll be real candid. I don't know that school districts should be in the business of swimming pools, but that's not my decision. This has always been the board's decision. And I would never do anything to undermine that or try to do anything that would compromise the board in that. So wherever that energy is coming from, you know, please let me know, because I would love to have face-to-face conversation about those things. I enjoy those opportunities to clarify and get to the truth.
Any further comments, questions, or concerns? Okay. Thank you, sir, for your presentation.
Thank
Have
you.
a good evening.
You too.
Okay, moving on to item 12, upcoming board meetings. Our next regular school board meeting will be taking place Thursday, August 24th. And just a reminder to us as board members that the deadline to submit items for the next agenda is August the 14th, 2023. I believe that's a Monday. I don't know. And then finally, our next, actually, this is exciting, our next fall region meeting for Region 7 is going to actually be hosted here in our district, and it's going to be at Gadsden High School, and I look forward to enjoying a meal that will be prepared by our Gadsden High School culinary kiddos with Mr. Sapien. And then I was telling Mr. Dempsey, I have full faith in Miss Mary Lou. She's an awesome event planner. so that we can plan that and make it a beautiful evening. And I would encourage, I'm not good at that, but you all as board members, if there are any suggestions, please feel free to share that with our superintendent and Ms. Delgado, so that's going to be an awesome evening. Because we want to, I told Mr. Dempsey, we want to showcase our food that our kids can make, and also the, you know, if maybe dancing, singing, I don't know what, you know, our OTC, you know, just showcase our kiddos and show our fellow board members what Gadsden is all about. So with that, let's move on to item 13. Do I hear a motion?
Madam President, I'd like to make a motion that we go into closed session, limited personnel matters pursuant to 10-15-1 H-2 of the Open Meetings Act, NMSA 1978, as amended for the superintendent and associate superintendent report on employees' administration leave with pay, employee grievances, and employee issues.
Okay, Mr. Cano has made a motion that we enter into closed session. Ms. Delgado, can you please take roll call?
Mr. Cano?
Aye.
Ms. Flores?
Aye.
Ms. Murillo?
Aye.
Ms. Rodriguez?
Aye.
Okay, we are now in closed session. Thank you, folks, for joining us this evening. Have a beautiful evening. Take care. We'll see you. Bye-bye.